gentlemen, welcome to Azeroth Daily for the 10th of May 2011. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of WoW news and comment. In the headlines today, Blizzard has announced that the subscriber base for World of Warcraft has fallen by 600,000. Now, bear in mind they passed the 12 million mark late last year, and as of the end of March, they're down to 11.4 million, so that's a loss of 600,000 players. Now, there has been some reasoning and rhyme and rationale behind this. Mike Mulhine pointed out that the subscriber numbers of WoW do tend to fluctuate depending on what content is available, although did point out that subscriber levels have decreased faster than previous expansions. That's interesting, and I think that's a combination of reasons behind that, really. And one of them is, of course, the release of Rift, which turned out to be a solid title, and another would be the fact that Cataclysm actually offers nothing new of any description. It doesn't have any groundbreaking new system within the game that wasn't there before, so I think that's probably why people aren't as engaged with it, although still bear in mind, 11.4 million is a lot of people. What really concerns me is that in the same earnings call, they decided to say that what has to be done is to release expansions faster. No. That's not good. That's a terrible idea, in fact. Good lord. That's the last thing I want to see. I want to see expansions released with enough content to really keep people going. What I would like to see is raid content and instance content released faster and less rehashes be made. That would be nice. So we shall see how this actually affects Blizzard's development policy going forward, and here's hoping it does so in a positive manner rather than negative. I always said that Blizzard really could use a bit of a kick in the ass sometimes, and this hopefully will provide that. Blizzard has released information about the 2011 Arena Pass and the various phases that it's split into. The registration phase goes from the 4th of May through to the 21st of June, so you've got plenty of time to get registered for the Arena Pass if you wish to get involved in it. There's then a practice phase between the 11th of May, which is of course tomorrow, and the 8th of June, and then ranked ladder phase begins on the 8th of June, and phase 2 on the 22nd of June. If you're getting involved for the sole purpose of getting hold of the pet and titles, bear in mind that the ranked 3v3 matches that will matter towards these prizes are between the 8th of June and the 4th of July. There's a new poll out over on the US Battle.net website, which allows you to vote on the subject of how many guilds you've actually been in. So you can go and vote on how many guilds you've actually been in. I'd be more interested to see the actual results of this. At the present time, 58% of people have been in between 2 and 5 guilds. That's a very specific amount, and it far and away outstrips all of the other votes, so that's interesting to see. Now, only 1% of those who have voted have never joined a guild in WoW, although I'd like to point out that the kind of people that vote on the website consist of a demographic that is more engaged in the community, and as such, that is to be expected. And with that, it's time for your Daily Blues. Dow asks the forum what exactly happens every time Zahim makes a new character. I am fairly sure that the forum doesn't actually know this, so I don't really know why he's actually asking that. But Zahim does respond by saying that yes, he does level and gear it himself, and no Blizzard employee is allowed a special privilege within the game in order to create a 85 with full epics and hard modes. Zahim is then accused in a joking manner of being too busy, in fact, playing Portal 2 and Call of Duty to actually do any levels, so in reality he's lying to the community. And he responds by saying that he does like other games too, and he does play all sorts of different things, but there you go, not a huge amount of information there. And he continues talking about Halo and all sorts of other stuff. If you actually want to read what Zahim does, then by all means. There is one point that I would like to have a look at, though, that is quite important and isn't involved in Halo and nonsense like that, and that's in response to a poster that called BS on guys playing the actual game and claimed that, well, you obviously don't play a mage or Blink would have been fixed 5 years ago. Right, yeah, it doesn't quite work that way, I'm afraid. The whole Blink thing would have been fixed 5 years ago if it was actually an easy bug to fix. I wish they fixed it as well, but they're obviously not just ignoring it. You can't be serious. This is a professional company we're talking about, with fairly good QA in comparison to other companies. It is absolute nonsense to suggest that they haven't fixed it simply because one of their CMs doesn't play a mage. My god, he's a CM. He's a community manager. He is not a coder. He can't simply go, right, my class got something wrong with it. I better go fix it. It doesn't work that way, you inept fools. Please, community, stop talking. Speaking of hoping the community stops talking, we've got Monster right here that claims legendary equals snorendary. What is a snorendary when it's a whole? That's not what I call the best wordplay in the world. Whatever the case, maybe his post had some substance. No, it doesn't. In fact, unfortunately, but there you go. And he goes on to say, well, why does Blizzard continue to use a broken and silly model for legendaries that are added to WoW? When I first started raiding ICC and Wrath, we decided who would get the first legendary. It was basically, oh, another shard dropped. Here you go, blah, blah, blah. How is it legendary at all when the only way to obtain it is to be in a guild willing to give you 50 of an item over the course of 2+ months? I can tell you this for a fact, that if you've managed to convince an entire guild to give you 50 of an item over the course of 2+ months, and that makes you legendary in terms of your charisma and charm, or you've got an incredibly good stranglehold on the guild as it is. That's the thing, it's hard to acquire, and the process of actually acquiring it is supposed to be good. I have to say that the whole Shadowmourne thing wasn't as cool as it could have been. Although I think the worst legendary items have actually been the ones that don't use this particular system. The random drop stuff like the Star's Fury Bow and, of course, the Warblades. Those are bad. Those are bad legendaries. They're just random drops. I'm okay with putting pieces together as long as it's then tied into a really great series of quests, and that's the response from Daxari as well. One, it's a little too early to complain about something you haven't actually experienced, and he then goes on to say that yes, everybody will simply complain about everything, which I'm glad to hear a CM coming out and saying this. Yes, people will whine about everything. But there you go. And we can continue going through this in order to find a post of worth on this particular item. And this is what I like. This is coming in from Daxari once again. And Troffle says, I wish I got paid to derail threads without responding to a legitimate question. Or maybe it's because the question was posed in an absolutely terrible way. Yes. He says, that's certainly not how I read it. And he goes on to say that the post is a criticism of the style of how the legendary is awarded, and there's way more to the line of the current legendary staff than has actually been explored through data mining yet, and it will be a very large challenge as well as a lore-heavy set of quests, which, to be fair, is exactly what I would expect from a legendary item. Legendary items are supposed to have a history behind them, they're supposed to have a lot of quests associated with the acquisition of said legendary, and if all it is gather 50 shards, get legendary, then that's a problem. If that's not what it is, and that's only a part of it, fine. No problem whatsoever. I would like to see some imagination thrown into the legendary quest line, and by the looks of it, that's exactly what we're going to get. There is one final post that I would like to highlight in this particular thread, and I'm not going to highlight all of Daxari's stuff because it's incredibly lengthy, but what I've got to say is this is the most disgusting attitude ever. Let me read this quote for you right here. It's obvious that the only people who have a chance to obtain the weapon are those that are lucky enough to find raid teams who can farm or are willing to farm raids for a significant period of time. It's just one more piece of content that your average player base will be unable to participate in. Will you please explain to me, random forum entitled whining guy, exactly how a legendary item is supposed to be legendary if everyone is able to easily acquire it? You do not gain the right to acquire everything within the game simply because you pay a subscription fee. You have the right to access the content. If you are not in a raiding guild or if you are not in a regular raiding group that can acquire this kind of item, then tough. There is no luck involved in it. It is all down to just how dedicated you happen to be with this game. And that entire attitude sums up the problem with all of Wrath of the Lich King and most of Cataclysm up until this point, when you have vocal members of the community actually expressing the desire to have items that they do not deserve. That sucks, and that ruins this game, and I'm hoping that people like that get ignored, and I'm very, very happy that Daxari actually responded at length to say that it is not a matter of luck, it's a matter of actually working towards a goal. Thank you, Daxari. Very much appreciated. And with that, it's time for your daily grind. Oh my, it looks like JJ Kishin wasn't killed after all. He survives and starts a very long series of alliance quests over in the Burning Steppes. Sadly, this line doesn't seem to be anywhere near as entertaining as the ones in Red Ridge, although I did find this quest further down, as you are asked to construct some golems and then help train them. And by train them, that means punch them in the face, which is optimum as far as I'm concerned, and the responses from these golems are absolutely pure gold. I'll continue going through this line and try and find you some interesting quests as we go through the next few days, and let's see what JJ Kishin has in store for us this time. And with that, it's time for your weekly feature. This is the Achievement Hog. Now, usually we do 3 achievements. Unfortunately, I had some filming problems with the third one, so hopefully I'll be able to bring you a couple more next week. The first one goes by the name of Prototype Prodigy, which involves defeating the Foe Reaper 5000 without the Prototype Reaper, which is the Reaper you can ride around in, falling below 90% health at any time. So that is a little bit tricky, and this is on heroic difficulty, needless to say. So the best way to do this is first clear out all of the ads. Kill all 4 of the ads that you have to start with before you do anything. Get rid of them, and then get somebody into the Prototype Reaper. Now, the best thing you can then do is to try and move the Foe Reaper 5000 up and away from the Prototype Reaper. If he's too close and the Prototype Reaper does his overdrive ability, then that's pretty much it, because he's going to charge at him, he's going to do damage to the Prototype Reaper, and that's that. Here's the thing, the Prototype Reaper is actually immune to fire damage, so the spawning ads aren't actually going to hurt him. So what you need to do is make sure that it's as far away as possible, and then don't lose aggro on the trash mobs. You should be able to stun lock them without any problems whatsoever. There are a set of abilities you've got, and the recommended rotation for this is 1, 1, and 2. That's 2 Reaper Strikes, which generate energy, and then a Reaper Charge, which does a stun on the mobs. It's as simple as that. Just keep doing that, keep stunning things, no problem whatsoever, and you should be just fine with this particular achievement. Now, this next one is in the Throne of Tides. It's called Old Faithful, and it requires you to get Lady Nazja to kill one of her minions with the Geyser ability. Now, that's not the tornado, folks. It is the Geyser. It's the spout of water that comes up from the ground. So the best way to do this is, if you do not have a Shadow Priest, kill both of the caster mobs off, and then get the melee mob down to quite low HP. Now, what you should do is try and group together as much as possible, because it's going to spawn a geyser quite close to, and you don't want to be running all over the place. Once you see the white spot on the ground, drag the mob in there and then stun it, and then that should finish it off. Now, if you do want a nice and easy way to do it, then get a Shadow Priest in your group, do the same thing, and then mind control the mob, and then simply run straight into the geyser. That simple, folks. That's how you get that. And bear in mind that a lot of these achievements that I've shown you over the last couple of weeks are, in fact, a requirement of Glory of the Cataclysm Hero. So if you haven't had that one yet, this little guide should help you along the way. And with that, it's time for the mailbox. This one comes in from Redden, who says, I've been playing WoW since mid-vanilla, and I didn't raid until TBC. I absolutely love dungeons and raiding. That's what keeps me hooked on the game. I play a rogue and wanted to so badly go on a raid, and I didn't have the gear to do so, so I really focused on getting gear. I did continue with normal dungeons and heroics and even battlegrounds, and by the time I was geared enough, I finally went raiding. I had a few pieces of PvP gear mixed with some PvE, so I was semi-balanced with my gear in PvP and PvE, along with 1 or 2 green trinkets and rings. My first day of raiding, I was at the doors of Karazhan waiting for the rest of my guild members. I did exceptionally well. I hit top 5 in DPS and got praised for doing a good job, and how others were telling me that I looked good in the gear that I had on. Fast forward a few years later, and the things that I did are considered unacceptable, embarrassing, and a poor excuse for being raid and dungeon worthy. The reason why I did better than some of my members was because of how skillful I was at playing my class well. Now, I'm not bragging or anything, but I've taken down a few good classes along with every rogue's worst nightmare, the Frost Mage. It was because I'd strategically placed my hotkeys so that I have fast access to them, along with some useful macros. Long story short, I did research into my class in order to improve my playstyle. Don't get me wrong, on item level, it's a great thing, but should that be the only thing that matters now? Is item level a wound that WoW is forced to sustain? Is it considered okay to have mixed PvP and PvE gear to do either task? Has skill been killed? Hell if I know, mate. That's a really silly philosophical question, in my opinion. It's too broad. What you did a few years ago was acceptable at the time because getting that kind of gear wasn't incredibly simple. Now it is. You're given very specific goals in terms of item level, and you can say that that's either a good thing or a bad thing, and I think that it's resulted in good things and bad things. For instance, item level, on the positive side of things, has given people a very clear goal to shoot for, and a metric by which they can measure their raid and dungeon readiness. That's pretty much a good thing. The bad thing is that it's an artificial barrier put in place to stop people from actually getting into content, and this works on both a social level and on a mechanical level. For instance, if you want to carry a guildie through a dungeon and get them some valor points by using the dungeon finder, you can't. Why? Because you don't have the item level, or at least that one guy doesn't have the item level. Now, I know for a fact that you can carry somebody through Zul'Gurub and even Zulaman, that are supposedly the hardest 5-mans there are, very easily. You can do it, because it's happened. I've been in a group where I was carried. As soon as I got to 85, I had the guild carry me straight through. No problems whatsoever. Got plenty of items from it. It can be done, but for some stupid reason, you're not allowed to gain any valor points for doing so, because the dungeon finder says, oh, well, you need to be this in order to do that, even if you have a full guild group, which is absolutely absurd. The other thing about it is that, from a social side of things, it encourages people to require item levels that are ridiculously high for content that isn't actually that hard. And we're talking about high item levels for Baradin Hold, for God's sake. One of the most ridiculously easy bosses, yet another loot pinata along the lines of VOA. That, as far as I'm concerned, is something that has to change. I don't think it's killed skill by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that people will latch on to any means necessary in order to easily assess the worth of another player. It's been happening for a long time. It happened with achievements, it happened with gear score and things like that, it happened with attunements before that, and it's now happening with item level. It's going to continue to happen regardless of what they do, so I wouldn't really concern yourself too much with it. This one comes in from Laxus that says, "Hi TB, I've been watching your show for a while, and how would you feel if your Hearthstone, after you used it to go back to your home location, would send you back to wherever you hearthed from? I would find this extremely helpful for leveling. I can hearth to Orgrimmar, load my bags, learn some new skills, even grab a drink at the local pub, and then when I'm done, hearth back to my questing area and continue with my adventure, rather than taking a taxi back to my questing hub, which wastes between 1 and 10 minutes that could be spent saving the world as a hero of Azeroth. I just want your personal opinion about the matter and whether you have any ideas on how to improve transportation around this ever-expanding world." Well, honestly, I disagree with what you've just asked for, and the reason is I don't think the world should get any smaller than it currently is. For instance, the fact that the portals were removed from Dalaran was a great thing. Now they've been put back in. Not such a great thing, and the excuse that they used to put them back in, really bad indeed. The thing about having a big open world is that traveling in between areas in this world actually does give you a sense of immersion. I think it's pretty much vital to having a large MMO experience. I think that if you trivialize the travel distance on everything, then you make things feel a little bit more arbitrary. I don't really like that idea, honestly. It seems too manufactured, too artificial. Hey, I can just hop into any zone, no problem whatsoever, by just teleporting. Hey, I'm a mage, so I suppose that makes me a bit of a hypocrite, but at the end of the day, I can only teleport to maybe 4 or 5 places of worth on the entire smegging planet, so I'm not so concerned about that. But I still think that travel time should be an element of the game. It's already been taken out of the game enough with the whole dungeon finder thing. I don't think removing it would be a good idea. Plus, I think anything that encourages the use of mounts is a good thing, and I don't think that Blizzard is going to somehow make it much easier to travel around Azeroth when they've just finished completely sprucing it up so that you can have a look at it from the air. It seems to me that they want you to look at that content, they want you to travel over that content and get a sense of scale, as opposed to just simply zipping around all over the place. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day. Thanks a lot for watching Azeroth Daily. Please remember to thumb it up and favorite it if you like it. And a reminder, Azeroth Daily will not be front-paged on the channel for the next week, because I'm currently doing some analysis in terms of the amount of views that can be gained from a front-page video depending on genre and series. So you can still find these videos in your sub box, in the latest WoW content playlist, and of course on Facebook, Twitter, and the bulletin system, as well as my website, cynicalbrit.com. Thanks a lot, guys. I will see you next time.